The last message my father sent me before he was killed in the line of duty read, "Ethan, my cover has been blown. The cartel will come for our family. Take your mother and get out of the country now. And remember, never reactivate my badge number." I was consumed by grief, but I didn't listen to my father's warning. To keep Chloe from becoming a target, I broke up with her in front of the entire university. With tears in her eyes, she knelt on the ground, begging me to wait, begging me not to leave, begging me not to fall in love with anyone else. But I was cold as ice, turning away with a wealthy heiress on my arm and walking out of her life. The deeper the love, the deeper the hate. From that day forward, Chloe despised me. She endured 4 years of hardship and humiliation, ultimately rising to the apex of the corporate world to become the wealthiest woman in New York City. And the first thing she did after achieving her success was to use her power to drag me back to her home, where she would bring home a parade of men, one after another, purely to humiliate me. Everyone in our circle laughed at me, calling me a pathetic, kept man, but I could only offer a bitter, silent smile in return. On the day she brought home the 99th man, his voice sounded eerily like my best friend, Mason. A short while later, Chloe emerged from the bedroom wrapped in a towel, her eyes completely empty. Perfect timing. "We're out of condoms. Go buy some more." With that, she pulled a thick wad of cash from a nearby drawer and threw it in my face. "The rest is your tip. Isn't money all you care about?" My face stung where the bills had hit me. I didn't bend to pick up the scattered cash. Instead, my eyes burning, I looked at her. "You've slept with so many men over the years. Why couldn't you even spare Mason?" She knew perfectly well that Mason was my best friend. Chloe's eyes glinted with cold fury as she sneered, "Did you spare me back then?" A sharp pain shot through my heart as memories flooded back, overwhelming me like a tidal wave. Chloe and I had been childhood sweethearts, the model couple of our university. We had promised to get married the moment we were of legal age. But at the peak of our love, I suddenly broke up with her and left the country with a wealthy socialite. The day I left her, she chased after me for what felt like miles, her eyes red from crying, begging me over and over not to go. But I was heartless. I refused to say another word, and even when I saw her get hit by a car as she ran after me, I didn't look back. The accident was severe. It ruptured her kidney, and she needed a transplant to survive. Lying on the operating table, covered in her own blood, she still managed to call me. But every call she desperately made, I hung up. From that day on, Chloe hated me with every fiber of her being. She spent 4 years clawing her way to the top of the corporate world, becoming a self-made billionaire. And the first thing she did with her newfound power was to force me into a marriage, only to bring home man after man to torment me. But only I knew the truth. I didn't leave her because I stopped loving her, or because I was a gold digger. I had no other choice. My father was an undercover cop. His mission went south, and the cartel discovered his identity. After they murdered him, they started coming after the rest of us. When we got word, my family had to flee. To protect Chloe, I had to cut her out of my life. When I heard about her accident, I risked everything to sneak back to the hospital and donate my kidney to her. I had to leave before she woke up. But when I got home, I found my entire family, my grandparents, my mother, and my sister had all been slaughtered by the cartel. I was the only one who survived. The image of my family's brutal murder made my vision swim with red. Seeing my bloodshot eyes, Chloe spoke, her voice frigid, yet I saw a flicker of hope in her gaze. "What? Are you going to tell me you had your reasons?" I snapped back to reality and shook my head firmly. "No reasons. You were right about me all along. I'm just a vain, money-grubbing parasite." I couldn't tell her the truth then, and I certainly can't now. I have a family to avenge. Our story is over. The years I've had since have been borrowed time. Now, I've decided to take up my father's badge and his mission. It's a dangerous path, and I'll probably be joining my family soon enough. At my words, Chloe's expression darkened further. She glared at me, her voice laced with fury. "If you have nothing to say, then get out and buy the condoms." I said nothing, just picked up the money from the floor and left. After I bought them, I left the bag by her door and locked myself in my own room. That night, as if to twist the knife, Chloe and Mason spoke loudly in the next room, whispering the same sweet nothings she once whispered to me. We didn't have much back then, living in a tiny studio apartment, but we were deeply in love. I had imagined 1,000 times growing old with her, raising a family, living a lifetime of happiness. But those memories were like a mirage, beautiful but forever out of reach. At that thought, tears I couldn't stop began to fall. The next morning, I woke to a tear-soaked pillow. When I went downstairs, they were both already awake. The household staff was bustling more than usual, and I soon learned why. It was Mason's birthday, and Chloe was throwing him a lavish party at the house. When the party began, their circle of friends filled the house. They all greeted Mason warmly, as if he were the man of the house. Chloe played her part perfectly, holding his hand as they accepted toasts. After he blew out his candles, she presented him with a diamond watch worth a fortune. As the night wore on, they shared a passionate kiss in front of all their guests. The room erupted in applause, and all eyes turned to me with undisguised pity. To be so thoroughly cuckolded, I was a pathetic sight. Everyone knew I was the joke of their social circle, yet I stood there like a statue, showing no reaction at all. I forced a bitter smile. Halfway through the party, Mason found me in a secluded corner. "You've seen all this, and you're not even going to ask me why?" I just shook my head. There's no need. Mason was my best friend, so he knew everything that had happened. For years, he had watched me suffer, had seen me break down over Chloe more times than I could count. He'd wanted to tell her the truth once, but I stopped him, insisting it wouldn't change anything. Now, Mason stared at me, his eyes red and filled with a storm of emotions I couldn't decipher. "Ethan, I've always hated this about you, this act of not caring about anything. You're so clueless. You never knew I've been in love with her for years, but she only ever had eyes for you. I know how much you've suffered for her, but you have no idea how much she debased herself for you. Of course I knew how much Chloe loved me. I knew if I just apologized, she would forgive me in a heartbeat, but I couldn't." Mason watched me, then paused. "You know, Chloe was never going to be with me. I had to lie. I told her I was the one who gave her my kidney. I just listened in silence." Seeing my continued silence, Mason's breathing grew heavy. After a moment, he said, "Ethan, you haven't gotten me a birthday gift yet. There's only one thing I want. I want you to give Chloe to me." I was silent for a long time. Just as Mason thought I wouldn't answer, I spoke a single word. "Fine." Mason smiled, his eyes welling with tears. "If you're going to give her up, then do it completely. Erase yourself from her heart for good." As he finished speaking, he let go of the banister, closed his eyes, and threw himself backward down the stairs. The loud crash drew everyone's attention. When Chloe saw Mason lying in a pool of blood at the bottom of the stairs, her face became a mask of pure ice. "Ethan, you're dead." She helped Mason up and rushed him out the door. The party ended abruptly. Her bodyguards brought me to the hospital as well. I heard Mason was losing a lot of blood, and since we shared the same blood type, Chloe immediately ordered me to donate. But giving blood requires a basic physical, which would reveal my past surgeries and medical history. I couldn't let her find out I was her kidney donor. With that in mind, I put on a callous front. "I'm not donating. My blood type isn't rare. Why does it have to be me?" Chloe pulled out a thick stack of cash and slapped it against my face. "Isn't this what you want? Money? Name your price. I'll pay it. Will you donate now?" I stared at her, numb, as she repeatedly struck me with stack after stack of bills. Each impact felt like a knife twisting in my heart. After the 6th or 7th time, I finally crouched down, gathered the scattered money, and looked up at her with a smirk. "Should have just started with this. Would have saved us a lot of time." With that, I walked straight into the donation room. After the screening, the doctor looked at my chart and shook his head. "This man has had major surgery. He's missing a kidney and has a history of hemorrhaging. I can't recommend he donate blood." Chloe's brow furrowed deeply. "What do you mean, missing a kidney?" Before I could answer, she cut in, her voice dripping with contempt. "What? Are you so desperate for my money that you're going to claim you were my donor?" Her words were a dagger to my heart. I forced a smile. "You saw right through me." Her face was glacial. She grabbed the doctor by his collar, her jaw clenched. "I don't care what he paid you to lie. I'll double it. You will draw as much blood from him as Mason needs." The large needle slid into my vein, and I couldn't help but shiver. As the blood drained from my body, a deep cold set in, and my vision began to blur. I don't know how many vials they took before I finally lost consciousness. When I woke up, it was dark outside. On the nightstand was a sweet rice cake, my favorite. Back when we were together, whenever I was sick, Chloe would go out in any weather to buy me one to make me feel better. She used to say it was all she could afford then, but one day she'd give me the world. The memory of her holding me, comforting me so gently, made my chest ache with a suffocating pain. I picked up the rice cake and mechanically ate it, bite by agonizing bite. As I left my room, I saw them in the room next door. Chloe was tenderly feeding Mason. Then, she cupped his face in her hands and kissed him softly. When they parted, Mason pulled her into an embrace, his voice full of longing. Chloe, please stop loving Ethan. Love me instead, okay? Her eyes drifted toward the doorway, meeting mine. For a moment, the world went silent. She looked right at me, her expression cold as stone. I don't love him anymore. I never will again. I said nothing. I just gave a desolate smile and walked away. During our stay at the hospital, Chloe's devotion to Mason became the talk of every floor. I was left alone in my room. Not a single person visited. One day, a young nurse, assuming I was single, bravely asked for my number. As luck would have it, Chloe walked by at that exact moment. She just stared at us, her eyes so cold it was terrifying, and said nothing. I never saw that nurse again for the rest of my hospital stay. On the day we were discharged, Mason insisted I ride with him. Chloe, let's just give Ethan a ride. It's a hassle for him to get a cab alone. Chloe shot me a cold glare. Mason, don't be so kind to him. He's a parasite who will bleed you dry. Besides, he's quite the charmer. I'm sure he can find some woman to give him a ride home. I didn't say a word, but in the end, I got in her car. Partway there, Chloe got a call inviting her to a business dinner. Mason immediately begged her to take us both along. She didn't object, so the three of us went together. When the other guests saw her holding Mason's hand, they assumed he was her husband, and their gazes fell on me, trailing behind them like a shadow. Ms. Vance, and this gentleman is? She glanced at me dismissively. Him? He's our houseboy. I brought him along to look after Mason. My heart skipped a beat, but I didn't say a word in my defense. Later, when someone offered Chloe a toast, she just gestured coldly in my direction. Drink it. I didn't bring you here to have a good time. Don't worry, I'll pay you for it. I smiled, picked up the glass without hesitation, and downed it in one go. Seeing how little she cared for me, the other guests started circling, plying me with drinks, and I accepted everyone. One middle-aged woman used the excuse of offering a drink to grope me. I pushed her hand away several times, but she kept placing it back on my stomach. From a shadowed corner of the room, Chloe watched the woman's hands on me, her eyes growing dangerously cold. I lost track of how much I drank. My head was spinning, and the room felt like it was tilting. I went to the restroom to splash some water on my face. When I came out, the same middle-aged woman was walking toward me. A sense of dread washed over me and I started to back away, but she was too fast. She pressed a cloth reeking of chemicals over my mouth and nose. My body grew heavy, and my blood felt like it was on fire. Just as she was about to shove me into a room, I kicked her shin with all my might. She cried out and loosened her grip, giving me a chance to push past her and stumble away. I ducked into the nearest empty room to hide. My body was burning up, like I was about to explode. The cloth had definitely been drugged. I was in trouble. In my delirious state, the door opened and a tall, slender woman walked in. She was silhouetted against the light, and I couldn't make out her face. Thinking she was a member of the staff, I stumbled toward her. I grabbed her arm desperately. Help me. Find a woman for me. Her voice was icy. Do you have any idea what you're saying? I bit my lip, trying to clear my head. I can't die. Please, I'm begging you. She let out a cold laugh. Why do you need to find a woman? I'm right here. The familiar voice shocked me back to my senses. I opened my eyes and saw Chloe standing before me. With the last of my strength, I pushed her away. Not you. Not me. Chloe's face turned to stone. She lunged forward, her hands closing around my throat. Why not me? Didn't you say you'd stay as long as I had money? Well, I have money now, so why not me? I froze. A moment later, tears streamed down my face as I choked out the words, because you're Chloe? You're my Chloe. My words were like a dam breaking. She lost all control, slamming me against the wall and kissing me with a desperate hunger. We were tangled together all night. When I woke again, it was morning. I saw the marks all over my body and my face burned with heat. Beside me, Chloe was awake too. She looked at me with an unreadable expression, as if a million words were on the tip of her tongue. But all she said was, "Keep your mouth shut. Don't you dare say a word of this to Mason." I gave a bitter smile. I was her husband, and we had just spent the night together, yet I had to keep it a secret from Mason. Could anything be more absurd? I laughed coldly. Fine. As long as you pay me, I won't say a word. Chloe's face went pale with rage. She grabbed another thick wad of cash, threw it at me with disgust, and then got dressed and stormed out without a backward glance. When I got back to the house, I discovered that Mason was moving in with us. His luggage was piled high in the living room, and the staff was busy unpacking for him. When he saw me, Mason greeted me as if he owned the place. "You're back. I had the staff move your things to the guest room. You don't mind, do you? It didn't matter if I minded. I wouldn't be staying in this house much longer anyway. After Mason moved in, he and Chloe were inseparable. At dinner, she would tenderly place food on his plate, peel his shrimp, even cool his soup before feeding it to him. I couldn't walk through the living room without seeing them locked in a passionate embrace. Even from the guest room down the hall, I could hear their sounds at night. They had woven a web around me, and they were slowly tightening it, strangling me until I was bruised and broken. Chloe took pleasure in torturing me, forcing me to stand guard outside her door while she was with Mason. You like money, don't you? Stand watch for us. How does 10,000 a night sound? Her face was a mask of seductive cruelty. Her lips curved into a cold, arrogant smile. I looked at her, silent for a long moment, before finally replying, "Make it 20. Chloe's face twitched, and she ground her teeth. She grabbed a bundle of cash and threw it at me with revulsion. Get out! I emotionlessly picked up the money and, as I left, thoughtfully closed the door behind me. The humiliations were endless. She made me decorate their bedroom, buy Mason's underwear, even clean up the sheets after they were finished. My payment was always the same, cash thrown in my face. I never refused. I never showed any emotion. No anger, no sadness, nothing. I would just calmly pick up the money and do as I was told, as detached as a machine. My indifference, however, seemed to drive Chloe insane. Late one night, when we were alone, she cornered me, her arms wrapping around my waist as she pressed me against a wall. Why are you so cold? Why don't you care? Why aren't you jealous? Did you ever even love me? Ethan, what am I to you? I remained impassive, my gaze empty of any affection. I only care about the money. If you want me to act jealous, that's fine, but it will cost you extra. This time, Chloe didn't fly into a rage. She just looked at me and laughed, a cold, hollow sound. She laughed until her eyes began to redden. Then she pushed me away and walked off without looking back. A few days later, Chloe had to go to a mountain resort for a business meeting. I wouldn't have known. She never told me her schedule, but I overheard the staff talking. I heard Ms. Vance went to the Snowfall Mountain Lodge for business and got caught in an avalanche on her way down. There's been no word yet. Really? Oh my God. I heard the snowfall has been record-breaking this year. If there was an avalanche, her chances aren't good. It's true. I heard Mr. Adams on the phone with her assistant. They've sent a search party, but the blizzard is so bad the official rescue teams can't even go up the mountain. They don't know if they'll be able to find her. My body went rigid, a feeling like ice water being poured over my head. With trembling hands, I unlocked my phone. The top news headline confirmed my fears. Major avalanche at Snowfall Mountain Lodge, Vance Corporation CEO missing. I had never felt fear like this. My phone slipped from my grasp and clattered to the floor. A million terrible scenarios flashed through my mind, and the blood drained from my face. No, nothing could happen to Chloe. I scrambled to my feet, threw on the heaviest coat and scarf I could find, and sprinted out of the mansion. When I reached the base of the mountain, the official rescue teams were all grounded by the blizzard, unable to ascend. I pushed through the crowd, grabbed a snowmobile, and revved the engine. Someone tried to stop me. Are you insane? The visibility is zero up there. You won't find anyone, and you'll just get yourself killed. We have to wait for the storm to pass. I gritted my teeth and shoved him aside. Stay out of my way. I'm bringing her back down. Without another word, I gunned the engine and shot off into the storm. The blizzard was even worse on the mountain slopes. Even in a heavy snowsuit, I was shaking uncontrollably from the cold. Everything was a sea of white. Finding her felt impossible. I screamed her name over and over, but the wind swallowed my voice. I shouted until I was hoarse, but I didn't stop. An hour later, I finally spotted her. A small figure huddled at the base of a pine tree. I ran to her like a madman, pulling off my own hat and scarf to wrap around her. She was unconscious, her skin as cold as ice. My heart ached as I carefully lifted her onto the snowmobile. At some point, a sharp branch hidden in the snow pierced my leg, but I barely felt it. It took 3 long hours to navigate back down the mountain through the storm. When the rescue workers saw us emerge from the blizzard, they rushed over in disbelief. They couldn't believe one person had dared to go up in those conditions, let alone find her and bring her back. The moment I saw them running toward us, I glanced back at Chloe, and only then did I allow myself to collapse. I don't know how long I was out. When I finally came to, Chloe was already gone from the hospital. I quickly gathered my things and checked myself out. When I got back to the house, I realized Mason had already brought her home. And in the story he told, he was the one who had braved the storm to save her. Seeing that she was safe, I had nothing more to say. I turned and headed upstairs. From behind me, Chloe's voice, sharp and cold, stopped me in my tracks. "Ethan, are you really that heartless?" My shoulders tensed for a moment, but I said nothing and continued up the stairs. After Mason's heroic rescue, Chloe's affection for him became almost excessive. Even the staff knew that in this house, Mason's word was second only to Chloe's. She promised him that she would give him anything he asked for. Mason held her close, his voice soft. "I don't want anything except to make this official. Chloe, you know I've always wanted to marry you." Chloe's arm around him stiffened. She was quiet for a moment before she finally spoke. "I can give you anything else, just not that." He pulled back, his eyes glistening with tears. "It's because of Ethan, isn't it? You love him so much, but does he love you back? Chloe, have you really been so blind to the one who's always been here for you?" With that, he pushed her away and stormed out of the room, his eyes burning. Before Chloe could follow, she heard the screech of tires from the driveway. She ran outside to find Mason lying on the pavement, bleeding. The color drained from her face as she rushed to his side and cradled him in her arms. He looked so fragile, as if he might slip away at any second. Trembling, Chloe took his hand, her eyes filled with pity and regret. "I'll marry you, I promise. I'll give you anything you want." Hearing her answer, he managed a relieved smile. The accident wasn't serious. After a quick trip to the hospital to bandage his wounds, he was discharged. The first thing Chloe did when they got home was ask me for a divorce. We sat on the living room sofa, a cold and silent distance between us. Chloe broke the silence. "Name your price. How much do you want?" I flipped through the divorce papers nonchalantly. "Whatever you think is fair. But there is one thing I insist on taking." She frowned. "What is it?" I closed the folder. "The family heirloom you gave me all those years ago. It wasn't just a pendant, it was the symbol of our love. If I died on my mission, I wanted it to be buried with my ashes, a final token of what we once had." At my words, a light flickered in Chloe's eyes. She suppressed a tremor in her voice as she said quietly, "If you don't want this divorce, we can stop." I knew what she wanted to hear, but I couldn't give it to her. "Of course we're getting a divorce. I'll get a bigger settlement that way, why wouldn't I? That pendant is valuable. I had it appraised. It's worth a lot, so you have to give it to me." Seeing my shameless greed, Chloe's face went white with rage. Her long fingers curled into tight fists, and her glare was like a dagger. "Ethan, you are heartless. I'll see you at the courthouse tomorrow. Don't be late." I never imagined ending our marriage would be so simple. I had expected her to drag it out, to torture me until I was a broken man before finally letting me go. Staring at our names and photos on the divorce certificate, a pang of sorrow hit me. From this day forward, Ethan and Chloe would no longer be connected. Before finalizing the divorce, Chloe made one final demand. She would give me a generous settlement, but I had to attend her wedding to Mason. Not just attend, but serve as Mason's best man. Only then would she truly let me go. I didn't understand her reasoning. Why would she want her ex-husband at her wedding? It was just cruel. The beach wedding was Mason's idea. He said he loved the ocean, so they would have the ceremony on the sand, followed by a party on a yacht at night. It was meant to be free-spirited and romantic. Aboard the yacht, while Chloe went over details with the crew, Mason and I were on the deck. He happened to see the heirloom pendant I had tucked away. I had shown it to him the day I got it, so he knew exactly what it was. The color drained from Mason's face. Without a word, he snatched the pendant from my hand. "I thought you were done with her. Why are you still holding on to this?" I lunged for it, my voice tight with panic. "It's just a pendant, Mason. Give it back." Seeing my desperation only fueled his anger. He threw the pendant to the deck and stomped on it with all his might. "If you're going to end things, then end them completely. Stop clinging to the past." The pendant shattered into a dozen pieces. Before I had a moment to react, Mason grabbed me and pulled us both over the railing and into the ocean. Neither of us could swim. The icy water closed over my head, pulling me down. I stared up at the fading light above, my mind a complete blank. I remembered falling into a lake once, back when we first got together. She knew I couldn't swim and was frantic. It was the middle of winter, but she dove into the freezing water without a second thought and pulled me out. When she saw I was safe, her eyes were red, raw with fear. It was the first time I'd ever seen her cry. She clung to me, saying she thought she had lost me, and that losing me was her greatest fear in the world. The second time I saw her cry was the day I broke up with her. I'd never seen her so helpless. She was like a lost child, not understanding what she'd done wrong. just begging me not to leave. Now, after everything that had happened, would she still save me? I didn't know. I had no idea. Water filled my ears, drowning out all sound. I saw a figure dive into the light above, but it swam right past me, heading for Mason. God was merciful, I suppose. I didn't drown. When the crew pulled me back on board, the first thing I saw was Chloe cradling Mason, frantically checking him for injuries. She turned and glanced at me, a pathetic heap on the deck. Our eyes met. My gaze was hollow, like a shattered constellation, and I saw a flicker of something in her expression, a sudden, sharp pain. Chloe looked away. Don't look at me like that. Mason is the one I love now. Of course I would save him. I stopped loving you a long time ago. Did you really expect me to dive in for you like I used to? I just nodded slowly. Back at the house, Chloe coldly tossed the deed to the mansion in front of me. This place is tainted by you. It's not fit to be my and Mason's marital home. The thought of keeping it disgusts me, so it's yours. The wedding is tomorrow. Get your things in order and don't be late. After that, where you go and what you do is no longer my concern. I didn't argue. I just nodded. Chloe, I truly hope you'll be happy. I meant it, but I wouldn't be at her wedding. I had just received a message from my handler. My fake death was scheduled. It was time to start my mission. My time was up. On the day of the wedding, I stood in the house that was supposed to have been ours, watching a stream of demanding texts from her light up my phone. Ethan, what time is it? Why aren't you here? You have 20 minutes to get here. Now. Ethan, don't you dare break your promise to me. I silenced my phone, ignoring the frantic buzzing. I picked up a can of gasoline and began dousing the room. A John Doe body was already waiting in the living room, a stand-in for the fire. From this day on, Ethan Vance would cease to exist. I took out a lighter, tossed it onto the gasoline-soaked floor, and walked away without looking back. An hour later, I was at a secure government facility. My commanding officer solemnly pinned my father's old badge to my chest. Badge number 174768 is hereby reactivated. Ethan, welcome back. Salute. With 10 minutes until the ceremony, Chloe coldly set down her phone. She had called me dozens of times, but every call went straight to voicemail. What was he playing at? Did he think the settlement wasn't enough? Chloe clutched her phone, her eyes blazing with anger, but Mason could see the flicker of worry hidden beneath the fury. Mason, wait here. I'm gonna go drag Ethan back here to be your best man. Mason grabbed her arm, holding her back. It's okay, Chloe. If he doesn't show, he doesn't show. We can't let him ruin our perfect day, can we? He soothed her. He had waited years for this moment. He wouldn't let Ethan ruin it now. A flicker of malice crossed Mason's face. Chloe's expression dimmed, but she didn't argue. 10 minutes left. She thought, if he would just call or even text and tell her he couldn't let her go, beg her not to marry Mason. She waited, but the seconds ticked by, and the call she longed for never came. Finally, the wedding march began. With a look of profound disappointment, she tossed her phone onto a nearby table, her face hardening into a cold mask. Let's go, Mason. After today, you will truly be my husband. The moment she turned away, the screen of the phone on the table lit up with a new message. Mason's expression flickered for a second before he smiled. You go on ahead. I'll be right there. Chloe nodded and walked into the main hall by herself. Mason picked up Chloe's phone. The text was from her head of household. Urgent, Ms. Vance. Something has happened to Mr. Vance. He deleted the message. A second later, his own phone rang. It was the same number. Hello, Alfred? He answered, his voice calm and casual. Mr. Adams, is Ms. Vance with you? Something's happened to Mr. Vance. Chloe and I are about to be married. Don't bother her with such trivial things. With that, Mason hung up. The officiant was reaching the crescendo of his speech. It was his cue. With a satisfied smile, he pushed open the doors to the hall and walked down the aisle under the bright lights, toward the woman he had loved for so many years. The wedding went off without a hitch. They exchanged vows, rings, and a kiss before the cheering crowd. Everyone was congratulating them, but a knot of anxiety in Chloe's stomach only tightened. She instinctively reached for her phone to see if I had replied, only to remember she had left it behind. Chloe, it's time to greet the guests. So many people came today, Mason said, his face beaming with happiness. He looked radiant. Guests kept telling them they were a perfect match. The reception was filled with laughter and clinking glasses, lasting late into the night. Mason was drunk, slurring his words. Chloe, I'm finally yours. Do you know how long I've waited for this? You were always looking at Ethan, you never once looked at me, but now, Now it's my turn. He started fumbling with her dress. Listening to his drunken ramblings, Chloe's expression softened with a kind of weary indulgence. But then her thoughts turned back to me. When she finally retrieved her phone and saw no messages, her heart ached. She knew if I had just said one word, asked her to stay, she would have thrown it all away. But I had been too cruel, not even showing up to see her married. Fine. From now on, she wouldn't be soft on me either. When the car pulled up to their new home, and Chloe was helping a drunken Mason out of the car, she saw her head of household rushing toward them. "Ms. Vance, it's terrible news." The words hit like a bomb. Before Chloe could react, Mason seemed to sober up instantly. "Whatever it is can wait until tomorrow. Chloe is exhausted," the recently drunken man said, cutting the butler off. Mason had been in her good graces lately, so the butler glanced at Chloe, waiting for her lead. "He's right. Today is my wedding day." "There is no bad news," Chloe agreed, and Mason visibly relaxed. The butler took the hint and retreated. After getting Mason into the shower, Chloe returned to the living room. She sat on the sofa, her face a cold mask, and summoned the butler. What happened? She hadn't asked in front of Mason because she had a feeling it had something to do with him. As she suspected, the butler looked uneasy. He lowered his head and spoke quietly. "It's Mr. Vance, ma'am. Something's happened." A look of disgust crossed her face. What could possibly happen to him? Does he want more money? Give it to him. After that, he's out of my life for good. "Mr. Vance, he's dead." In an instant, Chloe's hand clamped down on the arm of the sofa. The news was too shocking to process. How could Ethan just be dead? She glared at the butler, her voice dangerously low. "If this is some kind of sick joke, you'd better have a death wish." The butler was so terrified he nearly fell to his knees. He would never joke about something so serious. Trembling, he reported, "It's true. This afternoon, we were alerted to a fire at the property you gave Mr. Vance. It was a massive blaze. By the time the fire department put it out hours later, it was too late. Mr. Vance he was burned beyond recognition." The room was silent for a beat, an expression of pure disbelief on Chloe's face. After a long moment, she finally exploded. "How? How is that possible? Why didn't anyone tell me? What the hell do I pay you people for? I did call, ma'am, and I texted. You didn't answer. I also called Mr. Adams, and he said you were busy and not to be disturbed with trivial matters," the butler said, his head bowed, his voice shaking. "Impossible," she roared again. She'd had her phone on her all day, except for during the ceremony itself. No one had called. Furious, she pulled out her phone to prove him wrong, but when she checked her deleted items, she saw them, the missed calls and the text message, all from him. She was stunned. The timestamps were from right before the wedding. The only person who could have done this was Mason. The color drained from her face, and her heart began to hammer in her chest. "Take me to him," she said, her voice trembling. "Ms. Vance, Mr. Vance is..." Before the butler could finish, Chloe's eyes blazed with red-rimmed fury. "Take me to see Ethan," she screamed again. The butler, his face a mask of pity, could only nod. The driver brought the car around, and they drove to the house that was supposed to have been ours. When Chloe stepped out of the car, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. The place where our memories were made was now a charred ruin. Nothing was left. She walked in a trance through the scorched earth, the acrid smell of smoke still hanging heavy in the air, a testament to the fire's fury. She made her way to the back of the property, where in a small, cleared space, she saw a body burned beyond recognition. Her breath caught in her throat. Chloe sank to her knees, not daring to touch the body, afraid it would crumble to ash at her touch. "Is it him?" she rasped, her voice raw with disbelief. She couldn't comprehend that just yesterday I had been alive, and now, this. Chloe's heart felt like it was being crushed. A single tear fell from her burning eyes, landing silently in the dirt. Why? Why did this happen? What caused the fire? "Ethan, you took all that money from me, and you haven't even spent it. You love money, don't you? I'll give you all of it. Just tell me this is a joke. You can have all my money." "Ethan," she screamed. She used to hate me for being a gold digger, but now she prayed it was all just another ploy for money. That if she just offered me enough, I would walk out of the shadows, smiling. But she screamed my name over and over, and was met with only silence. Here, in these empty ruins, the man she loved was gone. "Ethan," Chloe whispered my name, her voice weak, as tears streamed down her face. Even after all the pain I had caused her, she could never forget me. She had married Mason to finally put the past behind her. But why? Why had I left her again? "Ethan, How could you be so cruel? Did I ever mean anything to you at all? She sobbed, unable to even hold what was left of me. An endless, suffocating pain enveloped her. She felt like she was drowning in the ashes. Why had I left her again? And why, after everything, could she still not let me go? Seeing Chloe on the verge of collapse, the butler stepped forward again with another piece of shocking news. Ms. Vance, while running DNA to confirm the identity, we made a discovery. The records show that Mr. Vance was your kidney donor. According to the hospital security footage from that day, he underwent the nephrectomy and left immediately, before he could even be properly discharged. That's why his information was never officially logged. Chloe's face went ashen. When she had woken up from the surgery, the first person she saw was Mason. She saw the scar on his side, and combined with the nurse's evasive answers, she had always believed he was her donor. It was the reason she had started a relationship with him, to think it had all been a lie. And the avalanche at the resort, it was Mr. Vance who risked his life to save you. With each revelation the butler made in front of my remains, Chloe's agony intensified. Finally, she couldn't bear it any longer. A heart-wrenching scream tore from her throat. Ethan, she had always believed I didn't care, never knowing that behind the scenes, I had been sacrificing everything for her. If that was true, then why did you leave me? Why didn't you tell me? If you had just said the word, I would have given up everything for you. Ethan, why? Why did you silently endure all my cruelty? How much pain were you in? Why didn't you tell me that you loved me too? Tears of utter devastation streamed down her face as an overwhelming wave of grief consumed her. Under a silent, star-filled sky, the truth was finally laid bare before the ashes of the dead. Chloe didn't go home right away. She stayed and gave orders for my proper burial. Throughout, her phone rang incessantly. She didn't have to look to know who it was. The man who had destroyed me. She worked through the night. By dawn, all the arrangements were made. She took my ashes and placed them in the tomb with her own hands. She hated herself, but she hated Mason more. If it weren't for his lies, she would have known the truth long before I died. He had framed me, manipulated her, and turned her into a monster who had tormented the man she loved. The memory of her actions made her sick with regret. She loved me more than life itself, and yet, deceived by another, she had hurt me in the cruelest ways imaginable. The name carved on the headstone was a knife in her eyes. With a trembling hand, she traced the letters of Ethan Vance, an infinite sadness flooding her soul. With Ethan gone, what was the point of living? But before she could follow me, there was one last thing she had to do. Her phone rang again. This time, she didn't ignore it. The grief in her eyes receded, replaced by a chilling, murderous rage. She answered the call. "Chloe, where have you been? Why are you just now answering?" "I've been so worried," came Mason's voice. He had been on edge all night, terrified the butler would tell her about Ethan. When he got out of the shower and found her gone, panic set in. He was afraid she would return with Ethan, and he would once again be relegated to the role of the insignificant bystander in their story. He'd been up all night, calling both Chloe and Ethan, but neither answered. He was trembling with fear. He had always been terrified of Ethan, knowing he could never compete. That's why he'd lied about the kidney, lied about the avalanche, and done everything in his power to make Chloe hate him. He thought marrying her would finally make him secure. But even in death, Ethan could effortlessly steal her away from him. Why? Ethan didn't even love her. He abandoned her. Mason hated Ethan with a burning passion. The moment Chloe answered, he pushed all that aside and feigned concern. "You were gone all night. I got dizzy again, I couldn't breathe. The doctor said it's because of my kidney. Can you please come home and be with me?" He used this excuse often, and every time Chloe would drop whatever she was doing to be by his side. "Of course, I'm on my way back now." Once, she would have felt a pang of sympathy. Now, knowing the truth, his words just made her feel sick. How dare he? She laughed, a cold, dead sound, and hung up. Her white wedding dress had been replaced by a severe black suit, the color of mourning. An hour later, she arrived back at the home she shared with Mason. As she opened the door, Mason rushed to her. "Chloe, I missed you. Where were you last night?" Chloe's gaze was frigid, as if she were looking at something pathetic. She looked at his eager face, grabbed his chin, and as he leaned in expecting a kiss, she slapped him across the face with all her strength. The crack of the slap echoed in the room as Mason stumbled and fell to the floor. He looked up, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Chloe, why? Why would you hit me? After everything I've done for you, after I saved your life." As he spoke, a look of realization, then venom, crossed his face. "I see. It was Ethan, wasn't it? What did he tell you?" He doesn't love you. Whatever lies he spun. Chloe, you can't believe him over me. I'm the one who truly loves you, who would do anything for you. Ethan is just a parasite, a gold-digging scumbag who used you. You've known that for years. He acted as if he were the victim, oblivious to the fact that his words were only fanning the flames of her rage. Mason, you're dead. She kicked the man on the floor, sending him crashing into a nearby pillar. Blood started to trickle from a gash on his forehead. He still didn't understand what was happening, why she was treating him this way. It had to be Ethan. It had to be. Mason crawled to her feet, weeping pathetically. Chloe, just tell me what I did wrong. I'll fix it, I promise. Just please, don't believe whatever lies Ethan told you. But the affection in her eyes was long gone. If my staff hadn't investigated, I would never have known you've been lying to me this entire time. You weren't my kidney donor. You didn't save me from the avalanche. It was all Ethan. He sacrificed everything for me, and you took the credit for it while you systematically destroyed him. Mason, you have a lot of nerve. His face was deathly pale as he clung to her leg, tears streaming down his face. I didn't want to lie, Chloe. Believe me, I just love you so much. I couldn't stand watching Ethan hurt you over and over again. We're married now. Forget about him. Let's just be happy together. Okay? I promise. I'll change. Chloe, please, forgive me. I'm your husband now. He sobbed, looking up at her, praying for forgiveness. But he had forgotten that Chloe was not a merciful woman, and that Ethan had always been, and would always be, the one true love of her life. Her voice was as cold as the grave. My mistake was trusting you, and Ethan paid the price. Do you know where he is now? If you go to him and apologize, I'll forgive you. Mason's eyes lit up. He knew it. He still had a chance. He'd been with her for so long, she couldn't be completely indifferent to him. She always hated seeing him cry. He nodded eagerly, a smile breaking through his tears. Okay, of course. It's my fault. I should apologize to Ethan. He likes money, right? I'll give him a lot of money, he'll be thrilled. So, Chloe, where is he? I'll go apologize right now. Chloe looked at him, a cruel smile playing on her lips, her voice like something from a nightmare. Then you can go down to hell and atone to him in person. The color drained from Mason's face. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Ethan's dead? How? That's impossible. It must be a mistake. It's a trick. Another one of his schemes to win you back. How could he be dead? He yelled. A crazed light entered Chloe's eyes. Still pretending? If it wasn't for you, he wouldn't be dead. If you hadn't stopped Alfred from calling me, he could have been saved. You were so desperate to marry me. You were willing to do anything. Well, now he's dead. Are you happy? Do you know how he died? While we were exchanging our vows, Mason, Ethan was burning alive in that fire. You intercepted the call. You kept me from knowing. I could have saved him. By the time I got there, he was already gone. With every word, the fury in her eyes intensified, until it looked like she was ready to burn the world down with him in it. Pure terror filled Mason's eyes. He had never seen this side of Chloe before, so utterly unhinged and destructive. I'm sorry, Chloe. Chloe looked at him with pure venom and kicked him hard. From this day forward, you are going to repay Ethan for everything. You are going to experience every ounce of pain he ever felt. Mason lay on the floor, gasping for air. He quickly realized he would have been better off dead, as Chloe mercilessly began to outline his punishment. We'll start with the kidney. Bodyguards rushed in, grabbed Mason, and dragged him out. They didn't take him to a real hospital, but to a private clinic that Chloe owned. Inside, Mason was strapped to an operating table. Ms. Vance, if we do this without anesthesia, the pain will be excruciating. There's also a high risk of hemorrhage. It could be fatal, the doctor warned. Chloe coldly lifted Mason's shirt and ran her hand over the scar on his side. It was this scar that had convinced her of his lie. She had never looked at it closely before. Now, as she touched it, she realized it was nothing more than a poorly done tattoo. How pathetic. She pulled her hand back, her eyes filled with even more disgust, and gave an order that could not be refused. Make the incision right over the tattoo. Since he wanted to pretend, let's make it real. The gagged man on the table shook his head wildly, but Chloe didn't spare him a single glance as she walked out of the room. The doctor sighed. I don't know what this man did to offend Ms. Vance, but it's not my place to ask. The sharp scalpel sliced through skin. Without anesthesia, Mason passed out from the pain multiple times. When the surgery was finally over, he was pale and unconscious. The tattoo he had used to deceive her was now a real, gruesome scar. When Mason woke up, he was in a dark, windowless room. The slightest movement sent waves of agony through the wound in his side. It hadn't been bandaged or disinfected. There was nothing to aid his recovery. He was too weak to even speak. But Chloe wouldn't let him die that easily. Someone came at regular intervals to feed him, forcing the food down his throat when he refused, keeping him alive by the barest of threads. A week later, just as the wound began to show signs of healing, someone came in and crudely ripped out the stitches. The agony started all over again, his screams echoing through the basement as fresh, dark blood stained the floor. Chloe watched it all on a monitor. In her hand, she held a photo of me from before, from when we were at our happiest. Every time she looked at it, she was transported back to that time, when we were poor but so content. We had worked so hard together, sharing shy kisses and quiet moments, dreaming of the future we would build. And then, I had ruthlessly abandoned her. When we met again, everything had changed. The sweet, kind boy she remembered had become a vain, hateful stranger. She had sought revenge, wanting to make me see that leaving her had been the biggest mistake of my life. But if you had just said something, if you had just told me you still loved me, that there was a reason, I would have believed you no matter what it was. Why, Ethan? How could you not know that? If you really didn't love me, why did you keep saving me? Chloe's eyes were red-rimmed, and silent tears fell onto the photo, landing on my face like our shared sorrow. She was drowning in regret. If only she had swallowed her pride. The past didn't matter. The future was everything. Why had she listened to Mason? Why had she hurt me so many times? We could have had a chance. More tears fell, until she was sobbing uncontrollably. The days when we had been in love now seemed like a distant dream, a fragile bubble that had popped, becoming a past she could never get back. Trembling, she pressed her forehead against the photograph. The butler entered and saw her like this. He waited a moment before speaking. "Ms. Vance, Mr. Adams's wound is no longer life-threatening." Chloe looked up. Her eyes were still red, but her voice was calm. "Then proceed to the next phase. But don't kill him." "Yes, Ms. Vance." The butler exited. A short while later, on the monitor, she watched as they gave Mason a glass of water. He drank it greedily, not spilling a drop. But soon, the drug in the water took effect, and his body began to burn with fever. It was the same trick he had once tried to pull on me. That night, if she hadn't intervened, I would have been at the mercy of strangers. Mason would not be so lucky. Chloe's eyes were like ice as she watched. Mason's were glazed over, his face a mask of despair as he was used and discarded like a dirty rag, stripped of all dignity. In less than a month, he was a shell of his former self, gaunt and broken. He didn't even notice when Chloe entered the room. She stood over him, looking down, for a long time. Eventually, sensing her presence, his sluggish mind began to react. His eyes slowly focused on her. It was Chloe. In that instant, a flicker of hope ignited in him. He scrambled to his feet and clung to her legs. "Chloe, I know I was wrong. I really do. Please, let me go. I'll change. I'll never lie again. It was all my fault. Just forgive me. I'll do anything. Chloe, save me. Please don't do this anymore. I'm so scared." He was sobbing, and the terror in his eyes was genuine. He still has a chance to be forgiven. Ethan has nothing. The thought crossed her mind, and she felt nothing as she looked down at Mason's pathetic form. "Do one last thing for me to make things even with Ethan, and I will forgive you," she said, offering him a temptation he couldn't possibly refuse. To escape this hell, Mason would have done anything. He nodded frantically. "I'll do anything, Chloe. Please, forgive me. I've always loved you," he said, looking at her with adoration. Chloe just sneered, turned, and left the basement without telling him what the final task was. He found out soon enough. Someone began splashing gasoline all over the basement, the acrid smell filling his lungs. As he looked on in horror, a lit match was tossed into the room, and everything erupted in flames. The look of adoration on his face twisted into one of pure terror. It was the same kind of fire, the same all-consuming flames. "Chloe, Chloe, you can't do this." "Ah, Chloe, I was wrong. I'm sorry." He pounded on the locked door, screaming for help, as smoke and flames licked at his heels. He wept in despair, but no one came. In his final moments, his expression twisted into one of pure hatred. As the fire consumed him, he went mad, cursing them all. Why? After everything Ethan did, how could she still love him? "All I wanted was to be happy, and I was tortured for it. It's all your fault. Chloe, I hope you die a miserable death. You will never have Ethan. He will never love you." The flames engulfed him, and soon, his vicious curses were silenced. The fire burned for a day and a night until everything in the basement was ash. Just like before, the sealed door was not opened until the last ember had died. Mason was charred black, his features melted away, a horrific sight, but he was still breathing. The fire was never meant to kill him, only to torture him. Chloe glanced at him dispassionately and summoned her butler. Since he's so desperate to be by my side, let's make sure he understands I only have eyes for Ethan. Send him to a plastic surgeon. The man on the floor couldn't speak, but his wide eyes burned with a poisonous hatred. He underwent extensive skin grafts, and his face was surgically altered, bone by bone, until he was a perfect replica of me. The surgeons all knew he was Chloe's plaything, and none of them were gentle. The agony was relentless, day and night. After 3 days of facial reconstruction, they finally began treating his burns. Took 3 months for him to heal, and by the end, his old face was gone, replaced by a perfect copy of mine. Staring at his new face in the mirror, Mason went berserk, smashing everything in sight, screaming with rage. The home he had dreamed of sharing with her had become his prison. No one paid any mind to his tantrum. The butler simply reminded him, "Sir, Ms. Vance will be home soon." That one sentence was enough to make Mason break down in tears, filled with a new wave of terror. At 8 o'clock sharp, Chloe returned home. But contrary to what Mason had expected, she wasn't alone. She had brought a man with her. "Chloe," Mason said, stepping forward hesitantly. His eyes fell on the young man with her, who looked disturbingly like his old self. A fresh wave of pain washed over him. He couldn't tell anymore who she loved, me or him. But one thing was certain. After everything he had been through, he couldn't bear to see her with anyone else. "We're out of condoms." "Go buy more," Chloe said, her arm around the young man. Mason flinched, tears welling in his eyes. It had been so long since Chloe had touched him. The only look she ever gave him was one of disgust. And now she was going to be with this boy. He glared at the young man, wanting to tear him limb from limb. Seeing the look in his eyes, Chloe slapped him hard across his new face, a mocking smile on her lips. "Ethan never questioned me. Have you forgotten your role?" This was her revenge. Was Ethan really that important to her? Mason wanted to scream, but in her presence, all he could do was watch through his tears as she led the young man into the master bedroom. The moment the door closed, Mason snapped. He rampaged through the living room, smashing everything he could get his hands on. Why? Ethan was dead, so why wouldn't she even look at him? After everything he had sacrificed, Mason screamed. A long time later, he personally delivered the condoms to her door. The door didn't open again until the next day. Mason, who had kept vigil all night, saw her emerge and lunged at her desperately. "Chloe, please, don't do this. I know I lied, but I truly love you. I've loved you for so many years. Please don't treat me like this. Ethan is dead, and I've paid for my sins. Please stop hurting me." He broke down sobbing. After all the torture he had endured, his greatest fear was still losing her. He had nothing and no one else. He could be Ethan's stand-in. He could endure her humiliation, as long as she didn't leave him. If she would just look at him just once. He loved her so much, but there was no pity in her. Her voice was cold and sharp, shattering his last hope. "Get off me. You don't have the right to say his name. Your debt to him is far from paid." She left with the young man. Mason stood frozen in place. Not paid enough? After all this, he still wasn't worth a fraction of what Ethan was to her. Did she want him to die? Was that the only way? "Chloe, how can you be so cruel?" The moment they were outside, Chloe released the young man. She felt nothing for him or for Mason. They were all just tools, instruments of her atonement to Ethan. She lit a cigarette. "Ms. Vance, I'll be leaving then," the young man said, quietly excusing himself. He was much smarter than Mason and just as ambitious. Chloe nodded without a word and began to walk, aimlessly, with no destination in mind. She just missed him. On the bustling street, people flowed past her like a river. Then she looked up and saw a familiar silhouette. She didn't even see his face, just a glimpse, but her eyes were instantly drawn to him, as if by fate. Her heart began to race as she followed him with her eyes, transfixed. The man was holding a woman's hand. He turned to say something to her, and in that moment, Chloe saw his face. It was identical to Ethan's. She stared in disbelief, her hands beginning to tremble. Couldn't be a mistake. It was him. It was Ethan. She would know him anywhere. Ethan wasn't dead. The man she had been mourning day and night was alive, and he was right here. A wave of overwhelming joy washed over her. It didn't matter why. All that mattered was that he was alive. Chloe started to run toward him, but then she froze. He leaned in and kissed the woman he was with. Chloe's eyes widened in shock, then blazed with a furious, bloodshot light. She pushed through the crowd and grabbed his arm. She spat out his name through clenched teeth, unable to believe what she was seeing. She had been torturing Mason day and night for him. She had wept at his grave, confessed her sins, and planned to kill herself after she was done with Mason, just to be with him again. And all this time, not only was he alive, but he was with another woman. Did he hate her that much? Enough to fake his own death just to escape her? She tightened her grip on my arm, her eyes, red-rimmed, fixed on the face she had dreamed of every night. She had imagined this moment so many times. If he were alive, if she found him, she would do anything to be with him again. He could hit her, curse her, he could even take back the kidney he gave her. As long as he came back, she would give him anything, even her own life. She had to prove to him that the girl who loved him at 18 was the same woman who loved him at 28. Mason had just been a terrible mistake. But now that she was really here, standing in front of me, she was at a loss for words. I shook her hand off, my face a mask of annoyance. God, you're relentless, Chloe. Can't even faking my own death get you off my back. My words were a dagger to her heart, the pain so sharp she could barely breathe. A moment ago, she had been hoping for a misunderstanding. Now she had the brutal truth. Why would you do this? She stammered, the only words she could manage. It was the same question she had asked when I first left her. And now, after I had faked my own death, she still didn't understand. Do you really not care about me at all? Then why did you save my life? Why did you give me your kidney? Just give me a reason. Even if it's a lie, I'll believe you. But I gave her nothing, just the same cold cruelty as before. Because I can't stand you. I never want to see you again. Chloe, for once in your life, take a hint. Just pretend I died in that fire. I have a new name now. I'm Ethan Shaw. I gave a small smile, and with that, I shattered her heart completely. She watched us walk away, and only when we had disappeared from sight did she finally break down, her screams echoing through the street. People stared, calling her a lunatic. Ethan, how could you be so cruel? She called her head of household and ordered an immediate investigation into Ethan Shaw and the woman with me. With her resources, it was simple. Ethan Shaw was an adopted son of the Shaw family, a graduate of a prestigious international university. The woman with me was my fiancée, Sophia, the youngest daughter of the Chun family. The Chun family, Chloe knew of them. They weren't a major power, just a family with one foot in the door of high society. So, after abandoning me again, you chose the Shaws? She whispered, her eyes red, her voice a mixture of pain and hate. She made a decision then and there. This time, she would do whatever it took to keep him by her side. Even if it meant he would hate her for it, she would never let him go again. The pain of being abandoned twice had twisted her love for me into a dangerous obsession. When she got home, Chloe ignored everyone and went straight to her room. She needed to think. She needed a plan to get me back. Lately, she either didn't come home at all or she brought a man with her. Her returning alone was a rare event, and it gave Mason hope. He personally cooked an elaborate dinner. He had been thinking. He was her husband now. Ethan was dead. No one could take her from him. With enough time, she would eventually forget Ethan. Fantasizing about their future together, growing old with her, Mason carefully went upstairs and pushed open her bedroom door. Chloe, I made dinner. Come and eat, he said with a smile, a perfect imitation of mine. He knew that for all her anger, she had never once struck this face, the face that belonged to me. But today, the sight of his face only reminded her of my cold rejection. Her anger flared. She couldn't bring herself to hurt me, but she had no such reservations about him. She looked at him, her face blank. Come here. Let me look at you. His face lit up, and he eagerly stepped in front of her. The face that had endured days of agonizing surgery to become my perfect copy. Chloe grabbed his chin, a chilling coldness in her eyes. Go and destroy this face, she said, releasing him. What? Mason stared at her in disbelief, certain he had misheard. Why would she want him to destroy the face that looked just like Ethan's? Are you deaf? I said destroy this face, she suddenly roared. Mason flinched. Then he saw the file on her desk. The man in the photos was named Ethan Shaw, but he, like Chloe, knew instantly that it was me. Only I could provoke this kind of reaction from her. Ethan was alive. In that moment, the blood drained from Mason's face. Because Ethan was alive, she wanted him to destroy his own face. She had never cared about him at all. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. Despair washed over him. Nothing he could ever do would make him worth a single strand of my hair in her eyes. He had thought the worst was over, that if he was just patient, she would eventually turn to him. But it was all for nothing. Dead or alive, I was the only one she saw. She would torture him forever out of her guilt for what she had done to me. He had been wrong, yes, but was she entirely blameless? Mason let out a cold laugh. Any love he had for her was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated hate. Are you deaf? Why are you just standing there? Chloe frowned. Mason had never defied her before. Why should I? If anyone owes him, it's you. The months of torture had worn him down, and the news of my survival was the final straw. He couldn't bear it anymore. He stared at her with pure hatred. Is Ethan really that important to you? Even after he abandoned you again and again? What about me? What am I to you? I've loved you for years. Chloe, you liked me once, didn't you? Why else would you have agreed to marry me? He doesn't want you anymore. Can't you just look at me for once? He screamed, but his words only fueled her madness. I never liked you. Not for a second. You faked that accident to trap me into marrying you. And Ethan isn't dead. He didn't abandon me. He's gonna come back to me, and we're gonna get married and grow old together. You're nothing compared to him. You're just a toy I was playing with. True despair is a dead heart. Tears streamed from Mason's eyes. He started with a soft chuckle, which quickly escalated into a mad, hysterical laugh, his eyes filled with mocking hatred. You're the one who couldn't keep him. You're the one who humiliated him with your money, over and over again. It was all you, Chloe. So what if he saved you? He stopped loving you a long time ago. You're the only one who can't move on. Ha! So you finally get what you deserve. You and Ethan will never be together. You'll both die miserable deaths. The hatred in his eyes was so intense it startled her. She lunged forward and kicked him hard in the head. Shut up. Ethan and I will be together. We'll be happy forever. We'll never be apart again. Mason's eyes slowly closed. The struggling stopped. He was dead. Just like that. The realization dawned on her slowly, tinged with disbelief. Mason was just dead, so easily. Staring at his lifeless body, she felt a strange sense of unreality, as if he might open his eyes at any moment. She stood there for a long time as his body grew cold and stiff. He wasn't coming back. Chloe took a deep breath, finally pulling herself away from the scene. A profound weariness washed over her. There was a knock at the door. It was the butler. He saw Mason's body on the floor and didn't seem particularly surprised. Ms. Vance, the Chun family is hosting a party in 2 days. Will you be attending? I hear they plan to formally announce the engagement of Mr. Shaw and Miss Chun. Chloe rubbed her temples, her voice low. Yes, not only will I attend, but prepare a generous gift. I need to pay a visit to the family who dares to steal what's mine. And, take care of this, she said, gesturing dismissively at Mason's body. The butler nodded. Also, Ms. Vance, we've uncovered some unusual information regarding Miss Chun. Chloe's eyes snapped open. Miss Chun did indeed return from abroad, but her family's business interests are not what they seem. If Mr. Shaw marries into that family, I'm afraid. The butler explained what his investigation had uncovered, and with every word, Chloe's blood ran colder. They didn't care about Ethan. They were going to use him and discard him. Chloe's fists clenched, her eyes blazing with fury. A few days later, the Chun family's party went ahead as planned. Given their status, the guest list was mostly close friends and family, no major players. No one expected Chloe Vance to show up. Ms. Vance, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were coming. To have you at our humble gathering. The head of the Chun family was beside himself with excitement. He had never dreamed of having such an important figure at one of his events. My husband took an interest, so I thought I'd come see what all the fuss was about, Chloe said, her face unreadable. Ah, I see. Well, where is he? I'll have the younger generation come and greet him, Mr. Chun said politely. Whatever her reason for being there, her presence was a major coup. He ignored his other guests and devoted his full attention to her, explaining his family's business and the purpose of the evening's gathering. To be honest, it's my youngest daughter. She's fallen for one of the Shaw boys and insists on marrying him. We may not be on the level of Vance Corporation, but we still have our traditions. So, we're announcing their engagement tonight to make things official, Mr. Chun said with a laugh. Chloe gave non-committal replies, which he didn't seem to mind. It wasn't until the house lights dimmed and a spotlight hit the stage that her expression grew serious. Even though it was just an engagement party, The couple on stage was dressed for a wedding. He was in a black tuxedo and she was in a white gown. Chloe's eyes were locked on the man who had haunted her every waking thought. "Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our home. I have a very special announcement to make tonight. I, Sophia Chun, am engaged to be married to Ethan Shaw." The woman beamed, holding up my hand to show off a glittering diamond ring. The room erupted in applause. Mr. Chun was beaming beside them. Only Chloe remained still and silent, her eyes fixed on the man on the stage. "Ms. Vance, has your husband not arrived?" Mr. Chun asked, noticing her strange mood and not wanting to offend her. Chloe didn't look at him. Her eyes were still locked on me as she said softly, "He's here, and he looks very handsome." Then she stood up. My smile faltered as I saw her. She was here. Couldn't believe it. After the cruel things I had said to her, I never imagined she would follow me here, to my engagement party. Our eyes met across the crowded room, and for a moment, it felt like we were the only two people there, 1,000 unspoken words passing between us. In that instant, we understood each other perfectly. Chloe's heart raced. She knew, somehow, that I still loved her, even as Ethan Shaw, and I knew what she was about to do. Panic seized me. I couldn't bear to watch as she began to walk toward the stage. "Thank you all for your well wishes. On such a happy occasion, I'm sure there are no objections," Sophia said jokingly, and the crowd laughed along. But Chloe's voice, clear and firm, cut through the laughter and echoed through the hall. "I object." She was now on the stage, standing right in front of me. "Ms. Vance." Sophia, though new to the scene, knew the name. She was completely bewildered, but Chloe didn't even glance at her. Her eyes were fixed on me, her voice suddenly soft. "Ethan, no, Ethan Shaw. Come with me. I love you." It was like she was back in college, confessing her feelings for the first time, her gaze nervous but focused, seeing only me. "Chloe, why don't you get it? I don't love you anymore." This time I rejected her. The color drained from Chloe's face. She grabbed my hand. "No, you have to come with me. Sophia is dangerous. She'll destroy you." It's true. Her overseas businesses are all. "Enough, Chloe." I ripped my hand away, my eyes filled with disappointment, anger, and condemnation, but not a trace of love. The look was a knife in her heart. "Being with you is what will get me killed. You forced me to give blood to Mason. You humiliated me with your money over and over again. You're the monster. I finally escaped you. Why did you have to track me down? I love Sophia. She's not like you. She would never hurt me. Do you think everyone in the world is as cruel as you are?" I screamed the words, my breath ragged, my voice raw. My eyes were burning, but hers were even redder as tears began to fall. "You really don't love me at all?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Not at all. Maybe I did once, but I have someone new now." "Then why did you give me your kidney? Why did you risk your life to save me in the avalanche?" "That was the past. Don't you get it, Chloe? It's over." I screamed, completely losing control. "I never want to see you again. Can you just get out of my life? I hate you, Chloe. I hate you." My hysterical screams shattered her last line of defense. She just stared at me, her face a mask of infinite pain. She had lost me, for good this time. She said nothing more, just stared. But the party wasn't going to stop for her. The Chens, even as a minor family, were not about to let this disruption go unanswered. "Ms. Vance, even for someone of your stature, this is inappropriate. My fiancé has made it clear he no longer loves you. You should stop making a scene," Sophia said, her face tight with anger. She hadn't expected this drama. Luckily, I loved her enough to stand by her. "You don't get to speak," Chloe shot back, her glare so intense that Sophia immediately fell silent. "Chloe, must you do this? Can't we just let it end?" I asked, my disappointed tone a fresh wound in her already broken heart. But she had to get me out of there. Sophia was dangerous. She couldn't just stand by and watch me walk into the fire. "Ethan, please just come with me. I'll explain everything. Just come with me," she said, reaching for my hand, her voice pleading. I didn't move. "I'm not going with you, Chloe. Let it go. It's been over for a long time. If you keep pushing me, I'd rather die right here in front of you." My expression hardened. I grabbed a fruit knife from a nearby table and, without a word, raised it to plunge into my own chest. "No!" Chloe screamed, her heart shattering. She lunged forward and grabbed the blade with her bare hand. Blood poured from her palm, the pain immense, but she had stopped me. She wrenched the sharp knife from my grasp, slicing her hand open to the bone. Cold sweat beaded on her forehead, but she didn't dare push me any further. With a look of helpless despair, like a defeated soldier, she slowly backed away and left the stage. Only then did Sophia seem to snap out of her shock. She rushed to my side, hugging me. "Are you okay, Ethan? Why would you do something so reckless? What if you had gotten hurt?" "I'm fine, Sophia," I said, forcing a smile and swallowing the lump in my throat. Chloe was still the same. The moment I was in danger, she would throw herself in front of me without a second thought. And that was exactly why I had to stay away from her. I couldn't drag her into this. Watching her desolate figure retreat, I couldn't stop the tears from falling. Sophia pulled me into a comforting embrace. No one knew that my own heart was breaking. Despite the drama with Chloe, the engagement party eventually concluded. I pulled myself together. "Let's go. I'm taking you to the family estate to meet the elders," Sophia said excitedly. She had wanted to take me before, but it hadn't been the right time. Now that we were engaged, it was finally appropriate. I put on a greedy expression. "Great. So now that we're engaged, when can we get married?" "Sophia, you know I don't have much power in the Shaw family," I said, taking her hand and looking at her with feigned anxiety. "What's the rush? We're engaged. The wedding will happen in the blink of an eye. Once my grandfather meets you and gives his approval, it's a sure thing." "Don't worry," Sophia said with a smile. That was the reason she had chosen me in the first place. An orphan, adopted by the Shaws with no chance of inheriting any significant shares. In fact, my adoptive brothers would be thrilled if I disappeared. I had no power, no allies. I was easy to control. We got in the car and drove to the Chun family estate. It was a large, imposing mansion and felt somewhat sinister, but I acted as if I didn't notice, a hopeful smile on my face. Only a few direct family members were present. I didn't bring a gift. "I hope your grandfather won't be upset." "Of course not. He's been very eager to meet you." "That's a relief. I'm finally going to have a real family." "Sophia, I'm so glad I met you," I said, my eyes shining with feigned happiness. She sneered internally. What an idiot. The Shaws were nothing compared to her family, and he was just an adopted son. Did he really think she would marry him? But his stupidity was what made him the perfect pawn. Sophia gave a non-committal reply as she led me into the main hall. An old man, clearly the patriarch, was seated at the head of the room. His eyes lit up when he saw me. "So this is your fiancé?" he asked, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "That's right. Prime specimen, isn't he?" Sophia laughed. Specimen? What did she mean? I was the only one who didn't understand. I tilted my head in confusion. But at this point, Sophia couldn't be bothered to keep up the act. She gestured to a few of her men, and they grabbed me and tied me up. "Sophia, what are you doing? We're getting married. Let me go," I yelled, struggling frantically. But I was no match for them. In moments, I was bound and gagged. "Blame it on bad luck. We just happened to be in need of a new mule," Sophia said, her true colors finally showing. Her words made my eyes go wide with horror. I understood now. I began to struggle even more violently, muffled screams escaping from behind the gag. "To be honest, your performance at the engagement party was quite convincing. If we weren't in a bind, I wouldn't have used you. So, as I said, bad luck. Take him away," she said with a smile, waving dismissively as I stared at her in despair. They took me to a warehouse filled with drugs. The sheer quantity was staggering. I couldn't imagine the damage it would do if it all hit the streets. I bit down hard, crushing the microtransmitter hidden under my tongue. It was the prearranged signal. It was time to move in. Sophia was using me, but I was also using her to get to the head of the snake. After this mission, the department would arrange another fake death. This time, Ethan Shaw would die, and I would be given a new identity for a new mission. Hopefully, next time I wouldn't run into Chloe. A few moments later, sirens wailed outside. The warehouse erupted into chaos. "Cops! How did the cops find this place? No one is supposed to know we're here. How did they find us?" The guards were panicking, but they were veterans of the trade, and it didn't take them long to figure it out. Their eyes all turned to me. "It has to be him. The cops showed up right after we brought him in. If we're going down, he's not walking out of here alive." Cornered animals are the most dangerous, especially these kinds of animals. A group of them advanced on me with iron pipes, intending to beat me to death before the police could get inside. They surrounded me, and the pipes and bats rained down, each blow a release of their frustrated rage. "You son of a bitch! You called the cops!" The curses and the blows came down on me like rain, until my entire body was a symphony of pain. I had always been prepared to die in the line of duty, but in that moment, I was still afraid. So be it. This was my final payment to Chloe. After all the lies, this time I was really going to die. I closed my eyes, my breath coming in shallow gasps, but I didn't beg for mercy. It was a matter of pride. From the moment I took this case, I had given up everything. My only goal was to cut out this cancer. But God, it hurt. Chloe, you were the only one I ever wronged. As my consciousness faded, I thought about how I had abandoned her twice. All for this. She must hate me. That was for the best. I had never cried from pain or humiliation. But now, thinking of the heartbreak I had caused the woman I loved, I wept, coughing up blood. If I could have one wish, it would be for you to live in peace and forget you ever knew me. Goodbye, Chloe. I curled into a ball, waiting for the end. Ethan, a voice, filled with an impossible amount of anguish, made me open my eyes. It was her. Why was she here? Why had she come? In that instant, the dam broke. All the emotions I had suppressed for so long came pouring out in a torrent of tears. I watched her run toward me, and in that moment, it was like no time had passed at all. She threw herself over me, shielding my body with her own, taking the blows that were meant for me. I was already sobbing. Why? Why did you come? I told you to stay away. You're going to die, Chloe. They're going to kill you. I could feel the blows landing even harder now that she was here. Her face was growing pale, but she still managed to smile at me. If I have to die, dying with you is a good way to go. Ethan, don't cry. At her words, my tears flowed even faster. I clung to the woman on top of me. I hurt you so much, I sobbed. Why would you still come for me? I didn't want to drag you into this. I never wanted this. Chloe, why? Why did you come? After everything I did to you, why would you still try to save me? She smiled weakly, gently wiping a tear from my cheek. Because I love you. Ethan, do you love me? Chloe's voice was a faint whisper, her eyes struggling to stay open, but she fought to keep them focused on my face, the face of the man she loved, determined not to miss a single second. I love you. I've always loved you. That's all I needed to hear. That's all. Chloe smiled, a look of pure happiness on her face. She lay there, shielding me, taking all the pain that was meant for me, protecting the man she loved until her very last breath, even after her eyes had closed for the final time. The police finally burst into the warehouse and apprehended all the dealers. But Chloe was gone, her body limp in my arms. I held her and screamed, a raw, animal sound of grief, but it was too late. Ethan, I'm so sorry for your loss. Try to be strong. I stood before her grave, my eyes empty, staring blankly at the headstone. My partner tried to comfort me. We all knew the risks of this job, how one mistake could get your whole family killed. The cartel had already taken my family from me. I hadn't even been there to say goodbye. And now they had taken the woman I loved, who had died protecting me, beaten to death by those animals. The medical examiner said nearly every bone in her body was broken, her organs ruptured. I couldn't imagine the pain. And yet, in the end, she had died smiling, just because she heard me say I loved her. The thought made me hate myself more than I thought possible. I finally understood the soul-crushing pain she must have felt when she thought I was dead. My body began to shake, and tears streamed from my hollow eyes. A low whimper escaped my lips, quickly turning into a full-blown, racking sob. Chloe! I collapsed to my knees before her grave, my grief a tangible thing that silenced the world around me. No one disturbed me. They left in silence, leaving me alone to cling to the cold stone and weep. The next day, when Chloe's butler came to pay his respects, the gravesite was empty. I went on to complete mission after mission, taking on one new identity after another. I met many people, some of whom showed interest, but I always just smiled and moved on. Until one day I took a bullet. It was a bad one. They did everything they could, but they couldn't stop the bleeding. I was finally dying, and the thought brought me a strange sense of peace. Under the cover of darkness, when the nurses weren't looking, I slipped out of the hospital and made my way to Chloe's grave. A sense of peace I hadn't felt in years washed over me. I leaned against the cold stone, as if I were leaning against her. I'm here to be with you, Chloe, I whispered with a smile, closing my eyes and letting the falling snow cover me like a blanket. I'm sorry I made you wait so long. I love you. The snow fell all night, blanketing the world in white. The next morning, when the nurses discovered I was gone, they immediately called the police. They searched the entire hospital, but I was nowhere to be found. They finally found me at Chloe's grave, frozen solid. But there was a peaceful smile on my face, as if I were only sleeping. The sight made everyone's heart ache. They all fell silent. They knew the whole story, how my father, an undercover cop, had been killed, and how his family had been slaughtered, leaving only me. How I'd had to leave Chloe to protect her, unable to tell her the truth. How, when we met again, love and hate had become a twisted knot in both our hearts. How a broken Chloe had hurt me again and again, searching my face for any sign that I had ever loved her, only to be met with another abandonment, and then the news of my death. And how, only at the very end, did she finally hear the truth from my own lips, just before death finally set me free. Was it all worth it? Looking at my smiling face, no one could say, because from the very beginning, there were no easy answers. May you find each other in the next life, a life without burdens, without the weight of vengeance, without the poison of lies. A life without regrets, where you never have to leave each other's side. They offered a silent blessing for the two of us, and quietly departed. The snow continued to fall, but the star-crossed lovers were finally at peace.